the Queen wanted Meghan to make a success of the marriage and of her new role, and indeed I think did everything that she could to encourage that. I think she suggested to her that Sophie Wessex, who certainly was a favourite with her and had been through it because she had married into the royal family, married Prince Edward, might help her be a sort of mentor. And I don't think Meghan was interested in that. She felt she had Harry. She didn't need to be offered a mentor. And I think the Queen was certainly very keen at first. In fact, the Queen took Meghan to what I used to be a member of Parliament, what was my old constituency, the city of Chester, for her first time going out, the pair of them together. And Meghan did brilliantly, was a star on that occasion, and the Queen chose it because they were going to go and visit a theatre.
But where do you think, then, was the point where it all went wrong?
I don't really know when it all went. I just say when it all went wrong. Meghan and Harry decided to develop their lives elsewhere, and the Queen would have accepted that and wished them well. That would have been her attitude.
But I think what does raise eyebrows for people is that I think you're probably right about that, and I think the public largely are very supportive of them living their own life. But it must have been so hurtful, that really incendiary claim about there being a racist in the royal family.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, and as you know, you remember 24 hours later how Prince William almost angrily said, we are not a racist family. And anyone who has spent any time with the now King, or indeed talking to the Queen, will know there is not a trace of any kind of racism, or even attitudes of racism. Even though I've said the Queen very much reflected her generation, but in that respect she didn't. The Queen was really passionate about the Commonwealth.
Unfortunately, there's been an incident at Buckingham Palace today. I think that a lot of observers will say, well, maybe they've got a point.
So the unfortunate incident you refer to is Lady Susan Hussey, who had been a woman of the bedchamber, one of the ladies in waiting to the Queen. In fact, I think her longest serving one, who had been with the Queen for 60 years, who engaged in a conversation at an event at Buckingham Palace this week that betrayed the very old-fashioned
where are you really from?
Yeah, all of that. Yeah. All of that. And totally inappropriate. On her side, people will say she's a lady in her mid-80s. She reflects maybe the way of speaking of her generation. She's apologised profoundly. She's stepped aside, etc. And you'll have seen how quickly the action was taken to have her step down. From my experience, that doesn't reflect, and I'm writing about the Queen and the royal family, I have had no experience of that at all. Indeed, quite the reverse. I don't know if it's in this book or in my book about Prince Philip, but I remember an incident in the 1970s or 1980s where I was at a private dinner with the Duke of Edinburgh, and somebody across the room, across the table, was telling a story that was in poor taste. It wasn't a racist story, but it was not acceptable. Today, it would be not acceptable. Then it probably was acceptable. But half hearing it, the Duke of Edinburgh turned on this man who was a friend of his and said, "No more of that, I don't like it." And stopped him in his tracks.
Can you give us any more detail on what kind of story?
No, it was a story that had overtones that we would not like.
Yeah.
I don't remember the detail because it was across the room and I was sitting here. But I do remember he only half heard it and stopped the man. It was a private occasion. There was no press there. So that wasn't their instinct was. And in terms of the Queen, I just have to tell you, that is so not what she was like or about in any shape, sense or form.